The night was too quiet for someone like Yaman, a man who had spent the last few months living inside a whirlwind of emotions, illusions, and half-truths that he desperately tried to convince himself were real. But something changed tonight. Something shifted. And for the first time in a very long time, he felt it, not in his mind, but deep in his chest. The spell, whatever it was, had finally started to break. It didn't happen suddenly. It didn't come like a scream, a fight, or a dramatic revelation. Instead, it came like a whisper, a feeling that he had ignored for far too long. A realization he had pushed aside because accepting it would mean confronting the truth he feared most. He was sitting alone in his apartment, the city lights spreading across Istanbul like burning embers. His phone was on the table, silent, as if it too knew there were no more excuses left. No more lies. No more pretending. He stared at it for a long time, thinking about everything he had tolerated, everything he had chosen not to see. The missed calls. The mixed signals. The cold messages. The sudden shifts in behavior. The way he felt alone even when someone was standing right next to him. For months, everyone around him, friends, colleagues, even strangers online, had been asking the same questions. Why is he still holding on? Why does he keep forgiving? How does he not see it? But love can be a dangerous thing. It blinds. It tricks. It makes even the strongest person doubt what they clearly feel. And Can, with all his success, fame, discipline, and certainty, had fallen into a trap he thought he was too smart to enter. Tonight he finally admitted it, he wasn't blind. He was in denial. He kept replaying the last conversation they had. The tone. The distance. The excuses that didn't even make sense anymore. He remembered the way she avoided eye contact, the way her voice cracked, the way she kept twisting her hands together as if trying to hide something. And then, the moment that hit him the hardest. She said, "You're imagining things." That sentence echoed in his mind like thunder. Not because of the words themselves, but because he suddenly knew, instinctively, that he wasn't imagining anything. In fact, he had been seeing everything clearly from the beginning. He just didn't have the courage to accept it. Something inside him broke at that moment. Not his heart. His illusion. He leaned back in his chair, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "Enough." It was a simple word, but it felt like a declaration of war against the lies he had been telling himself. For the first time in months, he felt awake. Present. Sharp. The fog had lifted, and the room felt different, as if he was standing in a life that wasn't lying to him anymore. Images flashed through his mind, moments he had brushed off, signs he had ignored, feelings he had suppressed. Every little detail lined up perfectly, forming a picture he could no longer deny. He finally saw the truth. Not just about her, but about himself. How he lost pieces of himself to keep someone else comfortable. How he accepted the bare minimum and called it love. How he silenced his intuition just to protect a version of the relationship that never truly existed. A painful truth, yes. But a liberating one. He finally whispered, "The spell is broken." And with those words, he felt something return, a strength he thought he had lost, a clarity he hadn't felt in a long time. Yaman wasn't heartbroken tonight. He was awakening. The next morning felt strangely different for Yaman. Not lighter, no, the truth never feels light at first. It was heavier, sharper, but also cleaner. The kind of weight that comes from finally knowing where you stand. For the first time in months, he woke up without reaching for his phone, without checking if she had messaged, without hoping for something that never came. He simply sat up in bed, letting the cold morning air wash over him like reality itself, saying, "Welcome back." He walked to the kitchen, still half lost in thought, and poured himself a cup of coffee. He had always loved quiet mornings, but lately they had become torture, moments filled with silence, anxiety, and unanswered questions. Not today. Today the silence wasn't drowning him, it was freeing him. He leaned against the counter and stared out at the Bosphorus, watching the early ferries glide across the grey water. His mind replayed the last few weeks, her distant tone, her sudden mood swings, her constant excuses. He remembered the nights he waited for her message, only to receive a short, cold reply hours later, "Sorry, busy." He remembered how she always made him feel like he was demanding too much when, in truth, he was asking for the bare minimum, a little effort, a little honesty, a little respect. And then, of course, there was that moment. The moment when he finally realized the truth, when he saw something in her eyes he had never seen before, not anger, not sadness, not fear, but indifference. The one thing he never expected from someone he cared about. He remembered standing there, watching her look right through him as if he was a stranger. That was the moment the spell cracked. He took a sip of his coffee, feeling the bitter taste settle on his tongue. He had been blind, not because he couldn't see, but because he refused to. People always imagine love as something soft, gentle, magical. But the truth is, love can also be cruel, especially when you're the only one fighting for it. He had given chances, understanding, compassion, patience. He had forgiven things he knew he shouldn't forgive. He had stayed silent when he should have spoken. He had protected her even when she didn't protect him. But the person he failed to protect the most was himself. He walked into the living room and sat on the couch, staring at the stack of scripts and notes on his coffee table. Work had always been his escape: sets, lights, cameras, long shooting days, physical training, discipline. But even those had started to lose their meaning lately. He realized now why: because he was emotionally drained, constantly trying to keep together something that was already falling apart. His phone lit up suddenly, a message. For a moment, his old instinct kicked in. His heart jumped, hoping it was her, hoping for some explanation, an apology, a sign that he hadn't imagined everything. But then, something inside him stopped. He forced himself to breathe, forced himself to stay where he was. He didn't reach for the phone. Not this time. He let it buzz, let it flash, let it wait. Because for the first time in a long time, he was choosing himself. He felt a strange mix of sadness and pride fill his chest. Sadness, because he knew he had loved deeply. Pride, because he was finally learning to love himself again. The illusion was gone. The dependency was gone. The excuses were gone. And once the spell breaks, it never returns. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself, "I deserve more than this." It wasn't arrogance. It was truth. A truth he had buried under months of confusion and emotional chaos. He didn't know what would come next, whether she would try to explain, deny, manipulate, or simply disappear. But he knew one thing for sure: whatever happened next, he would face it with open eyes. The fog was gone. The truth was clear. And Yaman was finally ready to confront everything he had avoided for far too long. For the first time in weeks, Ken decided to step outside. He needed air, real air. Not the stale silence of his apartment, not the suffocating weight of unanswered questions, just the world, raw and unfiltered. He grabbed his jacket, slipped on a pair of sunglasses, and walked out into the cold Istanbul morning. The streets were busy, as always, cars honking, vendors shouting, people rushing. But somehow everything felt slower to him, like he was watching life from the outside for the first time. It wasn't dissociation, it was clarity. A strange, powerful clarity. He didn't feel lost anymore. He felt aware. As he walked, he pulled up the hood of his jacket, avoiding attention. Normally, he didn't mind being recognized. But today wasn't about fans, photos, or public appearances. Today was about truth, and the part of himself he had abandoned trying to hold on to someone who didn't value him. He reached a quiet cafe tucked between two old buildings and stepped inside. The warmth hit him immediately, wrapping around him like a soft embrace. He picked a table by the window, his favorite spot during calmer times, and sat down. The waiter, a young guy who recognized him instantly, approached politely. "Turk Kavisi, orta?" Ken nodded gently. "Evet." As the waiter walked away, Ken stared out the window. People moved through the street, each trapped in their own world, their own worries, their own illusions. For a moment, he wondered how many of them were living the same mistake as him, loving someone who didn't love them back, hoping for something that was already dead. The coffee arrived, steaming hot. He wrapped his hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into him. And that's when his phone vibrated again. This time, it was her. He didn't open the message right away. Instead, he held the phone in his hand, feeling its weight. It was strange. How a single device, a single message, a single sentence could break a person, or heal them. He took a slow breath and finally tapped the screen. Her message was long. Longer than anything she had sent in weeks. "We need to talk. Things are getting complicated. You're misunderstanding me. I haven't been myself lately. Can we meet today?" He read it once. Then again. Then one more time. Every sentence felt like a carefully crafted excuse. Not an apology. Not accountability. Not honesty. Just excuses. Words written to soften guilt, to delay consequences, to keep him tied to a story that was already falling apart. For the first time, he felt nothing. No panic. No hope. No fear. No longing. Just truth. He typed a simple reply, "Why now?" He didn't send it. Not yet. He just stared at the words. Then he deleted them. He realized that asking why was pointless. He already knew the answer. Because people only want to talk when they feel you slipping away. When they sense their control fading. When they realize their spell is breaking. And hers was broken. Completely. He put the phone face down on the table and took a long sip of his coffee. The bitterness tasted real, more real than anything he had felt in months. He thought about everything he had been carrying, her indifference, her inconsistency, her emotional distance. He remembered how she always blamed timing, stress, work, exhaustion, everything except her own choices. He remembered how he believed her every time, hoping things would get better. They never did. But now? Now the illusion was gone. The truth was simple, painful, undeniable. She wasn't losing him. She had already lost him. Long before today. Long before this message. Long before she ever realized it. Because the moment he saw the truth, the moment the spell broke, the moment he chose himself, she had no power left over him. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly, letting the weight drain out of him. For the first time in a long time, he felt free. Not free from her. Free from the version of himself that believed he didn't deserve better. As the day stretched on, the feeling inside Ken shifted from clarity into something stronger, resolve. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was the quiet, steady confidence of someone who finally understood what he had been ignoring. The truth wasn't something he feared anymore. The truth was something he welcomed. He left the cafe and walked along the waterfront, hands in his pockets, the wind cutting across the water. Istanbul had a way of mirroring your emotions. When you were lost, the city felt endless. When you were clear, the city felt honest. Today it felt brutally honest. He stopped near the edge of the pier and stared at the waves. The sound of the water crashing against the rocks was grounding. It reminded him that life kept moving with or without you. Pain didn't stop the world. Lies didn't freeze time. Disappointment didn't erase the sunrise. Everything continued, and now, so would he. His phone buzzed again. Another message from her. Then another. And another. The notifications piled up like desperate knocks on a locked door. He finally picked up his phone, not out of hope, but out of curiosity. He opened the messages. Can we meet? I think we need to talk. I didn't mean to push you away. You misunderstood everything. I miss how things used to be. There it was, the line people always used when they realized the person they took for granted was no longer waiting at the door. I miss how things used to be. Not I miss you. Not I'm sorry. Not I made mistakes. Just nostalgia, without responsibility. He closed the messages and slipped the phone back into his pocket without replying. What would talking change? What apology could erase months of indifference? What explanation could fix a heart that had slowly learned to live without her? The truth wasn't that she wanted him back. The truth was that she didn't want to lose control. She didn't want to be the one left behind. She didn't want to face the consequences of her own actions. And more than anything, she didn't want him to wake up, which he finally had. The spell was broken. There was no going back. He walked further down the pier, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady. His mind wandered back to the early days, when everything felt easy, exciting, full of possibilities. Those memories still hurt, but not in the way they used to. They hurt the way healed wounds hurt, dull, distant, manageable. He realized something else: he hadn't lost her today. He had lost her long ago. He just didn't want to see it. He didn't want to admit that the person he once loved had changed. Or maybe she had always been this way and he was only now seeing her clearly. Love has a way of painting people in colors they don't deserve. But once those colors wash away, you're left with the truth, raw, unfiltered, undeniable. He was seeing that truth now. As he turned around to leave the pier, something unexpected happened. A fan approached him quietly, a young woman with a shy smile. "Can ABI, are you okay?" she asked softly. "You look different today." He paused. Not shocked that she noticed, Ken had always been easy to read, even when he tried not to be. What shocked him was that for the first time, he didn't feel the need to pretend. He gave a gentle smile, one that actually reached his eyes. "I'm better than I've been in a long time," he said. And he meant it. The fan nodded, still looking at him with concern. "You look free." That word stayed with him. Free. He wasn't done healing. He wasn't done processing. But he was free. Free from illusions, free from excuses, free from the emotional prison he had locked himself in. He walked away from the pier with a calmer, stronger stride. His phone buzzed again, but he didn't even look this time. Not because he was ignoring her, but because he no longer needed anything from her. He had returned to himself. And once a man returns to himself, no spell, no lie, no manipulation, can ever blind him again. That night, Istanbul seemed quieter than usual. The city's familiar hum. The traffic, the laughter, the distant music, felt muted, as if the world itself was pausing, waiting for something. Ken stepped onto his balcony, hands resting on the railing, looking out over the glowing skyline. It was strange, even beautiful, how peace could come after so much chaos. He inhaled deeply, letting the cold night air fill his lungs. It felt clean. It felt new. It felt like truth. Inside his apartment, his phone buzzed again. He didn't move. The sound didn't control him anymore. But after a moment, he walked back inside, picked up the phone, and looked at the latest message. It was a voice note. Her voice. For a long moment, he just stared at it. That tiny triangle-shaped button that once had the power to make or break his day. That button had held him hostage for months, waiting, hoping, begging silently for her voice, her attention, her reassurance. Not tonight. He pressed play. Her voice came through shaky, emotional, unsure. The kind of voice someone uses when they're suddenly afraid of losing the thing they never took care of. "Can. I don't know what to say. I know I've been distant. I know I hurt you. I'm not proud of it. I didn't expect you to pull away like this. You've always been there. You've always forgiven me. You've always tried. And now? I feel like I'm losing you. I don't want that. Please, can we fix this? He listened, silent, still. Once, those words would have broken him. Once, that voice would have melted every anger, every doubt. Once, he would have run to her without thinking. But tonight, he felt something he had never felt while listening to her before: distance. Not emotional coldness, just clarity. She wasn't talking because she finally cared. She was talking because she finally feared consequences. He sat down slowly, placing the phone on the couch beside him. He didn't replay the message. He didn't analyze every word like he used to. He didn't search for hidden meaning, excuses, or hope. He simply listened to the truth behind the emotion, the truth he had ignored for too long. She wasn't asking for him. She was asking for the version of him that tolerated everything. And that version of him was gone. He took a moment, rubbing his hands together, thinking deeply. Then he began typing a reply, slow, steady, intentional. We can talk. But not to fix what we had. I'm not going back to who I was. He hesitated for a moment, reading the sentence again. It felt right. He continued. I've opened my eyes. I see things clearly now. I see the truth. I see myself. And I'm choosing what's healthy, not what hurts. He reread the message. Not harsh. Not angry. Just honest. Then, without overthinking, he pressed send. It didn't feel like the end of anything. It felt like the beginning. He stood up and walked back to the balcony. The moon hung low over the city, casting a soft silver glow across the water. Somewhere below, someone laughed. Someone cried. Someone lived their own version of heartbreak and healing. Life was moving, unfolding, renewing. And so was he. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the breeze brush against his face. He was no longer the man who waited in silence. No longer the man who accepted emotional crumbs. No longer the man who mistook inconsistency for love. He was a man who saw the truth. Finally, fully, unflinchingly. When he opened his eyes again, the world looked different. Clearer. Sharper. Whiter. The spell wasn't just broken. He had broken it. Not because she apologized. Not because anything changed. But because he changed. He turned away from the city and whispered to himself the final truth he needed to hear. I deserve someone who chooses me, the way I choose them. And with that, a quiet, powerful peace settled into him. This wasn't a heartbreak story. This wasn't a revenge story. This wasn't a story of loss. It was the story of a man who finally saw the truth, and found himself again. Yaman didn't just open his eyes. He reclaimed his heart. He reclaimed his power. He reclaimed his future. The spell was broken. For good. Forever.